All right, good morning and welcome. It's actually really great to be here and not having had to drive all night to get here.
Yeah.
So I did make my connection this time. I didn't have to fly to some strange city and rent a car, and I'm happy to be awake and aware. So, John wanted to kick off the session, correct?
I do.
All right, so I'm going to give John the floor first. A lot of you know me, some of you don't, and I'll introduce myself in a minute.
I just want to welcome you all to the conference. Elizabeth Frisch has been a very inspirational leader for us for many years. This is our fourth Gear Up, and Elizabeth has been at each and every one of them. And she's been an incredible mover of our leadership. And her theme that she wanted to share with me, with you, is that she loves to empower people. And let me tell you, she's empowered my life. The principles that she shared with me of leadership and of what you need to pay attention to as a leader to help our chapters be successful, to help myself to be successful in life, they're true. I've lived them and trying to keep up with her because she's just an amazing leader, an amazing teacher. So I'm very proud to introduce her and to welcome her.
So John asked how I wanted to be introduced this morning and what I wanted to say, and I said, just say it from the heart, because you bring tears to my eyes every time you talk about me. I love you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. So this topic's going to feel a little different. And one of the reasons we did an experiment last year, we did Change Yourself, Change Others. And because outside of the USGBC world, one of the things I'm very passionate about is I believe most leaders are made, not born. And so when people say the term natural born leader, yeah, there's some people out there, but for the rest of us, including myself, I had to master leadership. It was something that I had to take on with as just zest and challenge as I took on parenthood and running a company and doing my job. And a lot of the books out there they teach you like what do great leaders have, but not the practices, the daily slog that you have to do to master it and stay in it. So the purpose of this morning, I have 2.5 short hours to do what is a weekend course. So I'm picking the highlights of what I think you can get the most bang for your buck walking out of here. And in an ideal world, you will all come this fall to Austin, because if you're a USGBC member, you can attend free. I do a weekend called the Defying Gravity Leadership Retreat. And we are going to schedule one in 2014 in Austin, Texas. And just by being a USGBC member, my gift is I let any USGBC person attend free. Of course, you got to get yourself there. It's in Austin, right? But it's Austin, guys. It's a great place to go. I am a recovering chemical engineer. I did not start out in leadership development. In fact, most people would say engineers are disabled in that category. And 12 years ago, I gave birth to an amazing little boy who was also born with challenges that made him very different from me. And I really thought I could engineer him, because I'd engineered everything else in my life. I was a very good engineer, guys. Good in my career. And I realized I couldn't engineer humanity. And so 12 years ago, I literally quit the path I was on with my career and completely retrained myself into psychology, performance, behavior change, all that kind of stuff, because I got it that if I didn't figure it out, my son and I were not only never going to have a relationship, I didn't even know how to support him to be successful. And the really cool thing is I can say 12 years later, my son is co-writing a book with me called You Can't Engineer Humans. He's 12 and he's co-writing a book with me because he wants other people to know what we worked out together to get him through. You know, he has an autism spectrum disorder as well as Tourette's. Yet he can get on stage, he's an amazing presenter, he's an A student. And he had no friends and couldn't even be in a room without holding his hands over his ears when he was 2. So I do believe leaders are made. I look at my son and say, and guess what his goal in life is? This is actually the best thing. He told me, I'm going to lead. That's my goal in life. I'm going to be an amazing leader. I just have to figure out where. And yet, if I listened to the doctors and the psychologists and everyone else who told me my son's predictable future, it wouldn't have been leadership. So I am a firm believer that every single one of you in this room could stand up and lead anything. Because a leader is about who you're being in here. It's not about your degree. It's not about necessarily the people you know, the experience you have, or the background you have. So that's the amazing gift that this world gives us, is you don't have to have any credentials or any degrees to be a leader. So what I want to leave you all with this morning is really empowered to know that it's literally a decision. And I want you to write this quote down in your book. Ordinary things done consistently produce the extraordinary. And one of my mentors, who really inspired me many years ago, Keith Cunningham, said that quote. And he is an amazing business person who's been through bankruptcies and failures and all sorts of stuff, and he's still a very wealthy man. Every time he failed, he went up to start another thing. You know, never ever in his mind did he have a question that he couldn't lead and continue to lead, even when he failed things. So, what I'd like to do is ask a few questions to get us going. So, show of hands, how many of you are currently in leadership positions? And how many of you are working for leaders? Which should be most of the room, right? Most of us have a boss in this life. Really show of hands, like how many of you actually have to report to someone on something? Some of you are like going, I'm really just gonna make me put my hand up. Yes! So, how many of you agree with me that you think leaders can be made? Just out of curiosity. How many of you think most leaders are born? Anyone? How many of you think it's a little bit of both? There's the 10% are born, the 90% are made. Yep, that's my precept for today. So what I want to do, and I'm actually going to ask someone, and this is my way of also keeping us all entranced, because I can't mic and be recorded and draw. So John Hanson, we're going to call him to the floor. What I would like you to capture on the board is, what do these people admire most about leaders? And I'm going to ask you, I'm actually going to come into the room and off the camera, but I want to make sure people are heard. So everyone line up that has this characteristic they admire about leaders, and you're going to call it off to John so he can capture it, and I'm going to support him. So you have to move. Okay, all right, and this is, actually, here's the cool thing about leaders. You have to learn to follow instructions, leaders. Stand up right here. And we're going to have, John's going to capture them, and this is so we make sure everyone who watches this back gets every single bit of the brilliance that is sitting in this room that's about to share it. So Mary's going to kick us off.
Decisiveness and direction.
So leaders have decisiveness and direction. Monica from Virginia.
Optimism.
Optimism. Optimism, that's an interesting one. There's a lot of debate in the papers about whether optimists make good leaders.
Humbleness.
Humility. And there's a lot of people who would argue ego.
Vision.
Vision. And I'm going to ask a second person to give John a hand, because we are only one boarding in today. You got it? Okay, good.
Good communication.
Good communication skills.
Wisdom, because I think there's a difference between being wise and smart.
Yep, there is a difference between being wise and smart. I'm a very smart person who wasn't wise.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Confident.
Confidence. Great. Then Amy?
Honesty and transparency.
All right, honesty and transparency. So leaders, we admire that they're decisive, they have direction, they're optimism, humility, vision, good communication, wisdom. And I apologize, John's writing frantically. Consistency, confident, honesty, and transparency. Okay, John, flip the board, and we got the flip side. What are the what do you not like about the leaders that you think are bad leaders? So we're going on the flip side now. What do those leaders lack? When you sit in your office and you complain about the leadership of your company or the politicians or anything else, what are they not doing as leaders?
Listening.
And I want you to line up again so that everybody can hear. And if you don't line up, I draft.
Autocratic.
Autocratic. That's a good one.
Uncreative.
Uncreative. Okay.
Self-serving.
Self-serving.
Ego.
Ego.
Not a good listener.
Not a good listener.
Critical.
Critical. All right, now I'm going to ask for a show of hands because that's not enough. Come on, guys. I know you know what to say when leaders are bad. What else? And I'm going to repeat it into the mic so you guys don't have to stand up since there's a resistance to standing this morning. Micromanagement, absolutely. What else? Dishonesty. Lack of experience. Lack of confidence.
Reactionary.
Think of the worst boss you ever had. You've all had one. Pardon? Competitive. Anything else? Inconsistent. Wet blanket. Not the most inspirational leader, those wet blankets. Lack of feedback. Control freaks. I remember the first time I went to go deal with my son with a psychologist, and they tested the parents to see what's going on. And he said, had I ever been diagnosed with OCD? Not until today, but thank you for confirming what my husband's told me for 20 years. All right, thank you, John. So what I'm actually going to do today is we're going to take this in two parts. Because leaders are as diverse as snowflakes. And in fact, each one of you has a leadership style that you may not even be aware of. And if you're not aware of it, I can't even take you to the next conversation. So we're actually going to do a quick exercise, and I'm going to have you pause the camera for just a second because I have to walk off camera and go get the instructions. But this is something actually, how many of you have done a retreat with me?